Hello guys, back for a part 2 of George's Marvelous Medicine by Roald Dahl. Animal pills. At this point, George suddenly had an extra good wheeze. Although the medicine cupboard in the house was forbidden ground, what about the medicines his father kept on the shelf in the shed next to the hen house? The animal medicines? What about those? Nobody had ever told him he mustn't touch them. Let's face it, George said to himself. Hairspray and shaving cream and shoe polish are all very well, and they will no doubt cause some splendid explosions inside the old geezer. But what the real magic mixture now needs is a touch of the real stuff, real pills and real tonics, to give it a punch and muscle. George picked up the heavy 3/4 full saucepan and carried it out of the back door. He crossed the farmyard and headed straight for the shed alongside the hen house. He knew his father wouldn't be there. He was out haymaking in one of the meadows. George entered the dusty old shed and put the saucepan on the bench. Then he looked up at the medicine shelf. There were 5 big bottles there. 2 were full of pills, 2 were full of runny stuff, and 1 was full of powder. "I'll use them all," George said. "Grandma needs them. Boy, does she need them." The first bottle he took down contained an orange-colored powder. The label said, "For chickens with foul pest, hen gripe, sore bracks, gammy legs, cocker-relatus, egg trouble, broadiness, or loss of feathers. Mix 1 spoonful only with each bucket of feed." "Well," George said aloud to himself as he tipped in the whole bottle full, "the old bird won't be losing any feathers after she's had a dose of this." The next bottle he took down had about 500 gigantic purple pills in it. "For horses with hoarse throats," it said on the label. "The horse-throated horse should suck 1 pill twice a day." "Grandma may not have a hoarse throat," George said, "but she's certainly got a sharp tongue. Maybe that'll cure that instead." Into the saucepan went 500 gigantic purple pills. Then there was a bottle of thick yellowish liquid. "For cows, bulls, and bullcocks," the label said. Will cure cowpox, cow mane, crumpled horns, bad breath in bulls, earache, toothache, headache, hoofache, tailhache, and sore udders. That grumpy old cow in the living room has every one of those rotten illnesses," George said. "She'll need it all." With a slop and a gurgle, the yellow liquid splashed into the now nearly full saucepan. The next bottle contained a brilliant red liquid. "Sheep dip," it said on the label, "for sheep with sheep rot and for getting rid of ticks and fleas. Mix 1 spoonful in 1 gallon of water and slosh it over the sheep. Caution: do not make the mixture any stronger or the wool will fall out and the animal will be naked." "By gum," said George, "how I'd love to walk in and slosh it all over old Grandma and watch the ticks and fleas go jumping off her. But I can't. I mustn't. So she'll have to drink it instead." He poured the bright red medicine into the saucepan. The last bottle on the shelf was full of pale green pills, pig pills. The label announced, "For pigs with pork prickle, tender trotters, bristle blight, and swine sickness. Give 1 pill per day. In severe cases, 2 pills may be given. But more than that will make the pig rock and roll." "Just the stuff," said George. for that miserable old pig back there in the house. She'll need a very big dose." He tipped in all the green pills, hundreds and hundreds of them, into the saucepan. There was an old stick lying on the bench that had been used for stirring paint. George picked it up and started to stir his marvelous concoction. The mixture was as thick as cream. As he stirred and stirred, many wonderful colors rose up from the depths and blended together, pinks, blues, greens, yellows, and browns. George went on stirring it until it was all well mixed. But even so, there were still hundreds of pills lying on the bottom that hadn't melted. And there was his mother's splendid powder puff floating on the surface. "I shall have to boil it all up," George said. One good quick boil on the stove is all it needs." And with that, he staggered back towards the house with the enormous heavy saucepan. On the way, he passed the garage, so he went in to see if he could find any other interesting things. He added the following: half a pint of engine oil to keep Grandma's engine going smoothly, some antifreeze to keep her radiator from freezing up in the winter, a handful of grease to grease her creaking joints. Then back to the kitchen. The cook-up. In the kitchen, George put the saucepan on the stove and turned up the gas flame underneath it as high as it would go. "George," came the awful voice from the next room, It's time for my medicine." "Not yet, Grandma," George called back. "There's still 20 minutes before 11 o'clock.
"What mischief are you getting up into there now?"
Granny screeched.
"I hear noises."
George thought it best not to answer this one. He found a long wooden spoon in a kitchen drawer and began stirring hard. The stuff in the pot got hotter and hotter. Soon the marvelous mixture began to froth, and foam. A rich blue smoke, the color of peacocks, rose from the surface of the liquid, and a fiery, fearsome smell filled the kitchen. It made George choke and splutter. It was a smell unlike any he had smelled before. It was a brutal and bewitching smell, spicy and staggering, fierce and frenzied, full of wizardry and magic. Whenever he got a whiff of it up his nose, firecrackers went off in his skull, and electric prickles ran along the backs of his legs. It was wonderful to stand there stirring this amazing mixture, and to watch it smoking blue and bubbling and frothing and foaming as if it were alive. At one point, he could have sworn he saw bright sparks flashing in the swirling foam. And suddenly, George found himself dancing around the steaming pot, chanting strange words that came into his head out of nowhere. "Fiery broth and witch's brew, foamy froth and rich as blue, fume and spoondrift spray, fizzle, swizzo, shout hooray, watch it sloshing, swashing, splashing, hear it hissing, squishing, spissing, Grandma better start to pray." Brown paint. George turned off the heat under the saucepan. He must leave plenty of time for it to cool down. When all the steam and froth had gone away, he peered into the giant pan to see the great medicine now was. It was a deep and brilliant blue. "It needs more brown in it," George said. "It simply must be brown or she'll get suspicious." George ran outside and dashed into his father's tool shed, where all the paints were kept. There was a row of cans on the shelf, all colors: black, green, red, pink, white, and brown. He reached for the can of brown. The label said simply, "Dark brown gloss paint, 1 quart." He took a screwdriver and prized off the lid. The can was 3/4 full. He rushed it back to the kitchen. He poured the whole lot into the saucepan. The saucepan was now full to the brim. Very gently, George stirred the pan into the mixture with a long wooden spoon. Aha! It was turning brown, a lovely, rich, creamy brown.
"Where's that medicine of mine, boy?"
came the voice from the living room.
"You're forgetting me. You're doing it on purpose. I shall tell your mother."
"I'm not forgetting you, Grandma," George called back. "I'm thinking of you all the time. There are still 10 minutes to go."
"You're a nasty little maggot,"
the voice screeched back.
"You're a lazy and disobedient little worm, and you're growing too fast."
George fetched the bottle of Grandma's real medicine from the sideboard. He took out the cork and tipped it all down the sink. Then he filled the bottle with his own magic mixture by dipping a small jug into the saucepan and using it as a pourer. He replaced the cork. Had it cooled down enough yet? Not quite. He had the bottle under the cold tap for a couple of minutes. The label came off in the wet, but that didn't matter. He dried the bottle off with a dishcloth. It all was now ready. This was it. The great moment had arrived. Medicine time, Grandma, he called out.
"I should hope so,"
came the grumpy reply. The silver teaspoon in which the medicine was always given lay ready on the kitchen sideboard. George picked it up. Holding the spoon in one hand and the bottle in the other, he advanced into the living room. Grandma gets the medicine. Grandma sat hunched in her chair by the window. The wicked little eyes followed George closely as he crossed the room towards her.
"You're late," she snapped.
"I don't think I am, Grandma."
"Don't interrupt me in the middle of a sentence," she shouted.
"But you'd finished your sentence, Grandma."
"There you go again," she cried, "always interrupting and arguing.
You really are some tiresome little boy."
What's the time?"
"It's exactly 11 o'clock, Grandma."
You're lying as usual. Stop talking so much and give me my medicine. Shake the bottle first. Then pour it into the spoon and make sure it's a whole spoonful."
"Are you going to gulp it all down in one go, George asked her, "or will you sip it?"
"What I do is none of your business," the old woman said. "Fill the spoon."
As George removed the cork and began very slowly to pour the thick brown stuff into the spoon, he couldn't help thinking back upon all the mad and marvelous things that had gone into the making of this crazy stuff. The shaving soap, the hair remover, the dandruff cure, the automatic washing machine powder, the flea powder for the dogs, the shoe polish, the black pepper, the horseradish sauce, and all the rest of them. Not to mention the powerful animal pills and powders and liquids, and the brown paint. "Open your mouth wide, Grandma," he said, "and I'll pop it in." The old hag opened her small wrinkled mouth, showing disgusting pale brown teeth. "Here we go," George cried out. "Swallow it down." He pushed the spoon well into her mouth and dipped the mixture down her throat. Then he stepped back to watch the result. It was worth watching. Grandma yelled, "Owie!" and her whole body shot up, whoosh into the air. And it was exactly as though someone had pushed an electric wire through the underneath of her chair and switched it on the current. Up she went like a jack-in-the-box. And she didn't come down. She stayed there, suspended in midair, about 2 feet up, still sitting in a position, but rigid now. Frozen, quivering, the eyes bulging, the hair standing straight on end. "Is something wrong, Grandma?" George asked her politely. "Are you all right?" Suspended up there in space, the old girl was beyond speaking. The shock that George's marvelous mixture had given her must have been tremendous. You'd have thought she swallowed a red-hot poker the way she took off from that chair. Then down she came again with a plop, back into her seat. Call the fire brigade, she shouted suddenly. My stomach's on fire. It's just the medicine, Grandma, George said. It's the good, strong stuff. Fire, the woman yelled. Fire in the basement. Get a bucket. Man the houses. Do something quick. Cool it, Grandma, George said, but he got a bit of shock when he saw the smoke coming out of her mouth and out of her nostrils. Clouds of black smoke were coming out of her nose and blowing around the room. By golly, you really are on fire, George said. Of course I'm on fire, she yelled. I'll be burned to a crisp. I'll be fried to a frizzle. I'll be boiled like a beetroot. George ran into the kitchen and came back with a jug of water. Open your mouth, Grandma, he cried. He could hardly see her for the smoke, but he managed to pour half a jugful down her throat. A sizzling sound, the kind you'd get if you hold a hot frying pan under a cold tap, came up from deep down in Grandma's stomach. The old hag shied and snorted. She gasped and gurgled. Spouts of water came shooting out of her, and the smoke cleared away. The fire's out, George announced proudly. You'll be all right now, Grandma. All right, she yelled. Who's all right? There's Jackie jumpers in my tummy. There's squigglers in my belly. There's bangers in my bottom. She began bouncing up and down in the chair. Quite obviously, she was not very comfortable.